Hi, how's it going? This is Resident of Collinwood for YouTube. Here to continue my read-along reviews for tonight. We got written by John Philip Betancourt. Book 6, Chapter 2. The Truth Will Set You Free. A midsummer cool breeze filtered through the trees of Village Park, where Matthew and Lucas were walking to catch a cab in town up to Terramore House. There they hoped to find the woman of Matthew's visions, the woman he had been dreaming about and hoping he'd find after all these months lost at sea. The hope was that she, the woman, the fisherman they encountered on the docks, would unlock everything his mind was blocking. As the two made their way through the park and up a winding cobblestone street toward the center of town, the street narrowed a bit at a curve when it came to the edge of a bluff that overlooked the ocean. Lucas was making small talk as Matthew suddenly began to get lost in the sound of the ocean hitting the seawall below. Matthew looked out onto the wild sea and began to hear something in the distance beyond the waves. It became more intense. The sound Matthew's deep brown eyes became transfixed over the sea. It was whales. They were calling him. He could feel it. He could tell that their sonar, their musical tones, were for him. He couldn't understand why he was hearing it, why it was coming to him so clearly in his mind. Uh, what were they trying to tell him? Was it a warning? "What is it?" Lucas asked as his friend stopped dead in his tracks on the road watching the sea. "Do you hear that?" Matthew asked. Lucas strained to hear the ocean. "No? The whales. Do you hear the whales?" Lucas stepped close to the sea wall to listen. He couldn't hear them. He couldn't even see whales out on the ocean with their trademark puffs of air blasting water through their spiracles like steamships out on the wild blue water. The sea was pulling and crashing back onto the rocks below the wall, but there was no whales in sight. "I don't hear anything, Winter," Lucas said, using the nickname he had given Matthew before they knew his real name. "Just the sea," he added. "I can," Matthew replied assertively. "They're trying to warn me about something. They're trying to tell me something isn't right. There's no way they would, and I would be able to hear them this way and it not mean something. You should go back." "Back to the inn?" Lucas asked. "You don't want to see the woman at this Terramore house? She could be the one that unlocks everything. Or she could be the one that helps you." "It just feels I have to go back. We have to go back. Something doesn't feel right," Matthew said as the calls from the sea got louder and louder in his ear. "But we came all this way. Now we have a lead on who might be the woman in your dreams. It just fell into our lap. And you want to go back to the inn?" Lucas again said, sounding frustrated. Matthew began to shake. He put his hands over his ears as the waves and wails got louder and louder. The sensation of panic got stronger and stronger. Then a frightening and murderous sound of a wolf howling in the distance echoed through the village park where Lucas and Matthew were standing. Lucas this time heard it too. A chill ran up Lucas' spine, and he too began to feel something was wrong. There was suddenly an odd quiet that fell over them, and they began to feel as if they were being stopped, watched from a hidden blind. This isn't right. Something isn't right, Matthew said. Okay, alright, okay. It's okay, you're okay. Let's go back, Lucas agreed. Matthew quickly turned back from the sea, and the two decided to head back to the inn they were staying at on the other side of the village park. Finding Evie would have to wait another day. Matthew's emotions and whole body were reconnecting to his native land like a bolt of lightning to a metal spear. The Welsh port sea and the trees and everything around him were sending him warning signals loud and clear, especially through his kindred spirits deep in the ocean. Something was not right, and all of Matthew's suppressed powers that connected him to this environment were speaking their native tongue. Loud, but the message and the warning were still unclear. So Rebecca and Caspian discuss his search. At Terramore House, under the sparkling lights of several buzzing chandeliers in what the family called the Golden Room, Caspian Castledor sat reading the afternoon paper. He searched the bylines of the Welshport Globe for any kind of recognizable name in the town's news that would give him a clue to his life, for he was Caspian Castledor. He knew deep down in his bones that the name everyone knew him by was not his. This was the name the creature that lived inside of him called itself before being expelled back to the darkness and back to the underworld, never to be seen from again. Hopefully, entertaining in the glistering gold drawing room, Rebecca saw her new husband painstakingly searching the paper for something, anything that would give him feeling he was on the right track. This made her nervous. What if everything would he find and would have found would it change their relationship? She worried that everything she had fought for to finally be with Caspian and take back her family's company, his help would slip through her fingers. Should he find his old life, then there was the Aurora factor. Caspian and Aurora's encounter the evening Evie returned made Rebecca nervous. To Rebecca, Aurora's youth and beauty was no match for her, and that threat could unravel all she worked for. Rebecca had clawed her way out of Churchill Green and back into power, but at a fragile grasp. The complex situation burned inside Rebecca's mind daily, and now she could tell her new husband was intent of finding out who he was before his date with the devil, and possibly more if Aurora were in the mix. "You're very involved in that paper," she said, sitting beside him on the cream-colored sofa. He looked up from the paper and her, kissed his wife's cheek. "Very," he said. "Anything interesting in the news?" "Nothing yet," he replied, gazing back into the black and white smudged globe. "Caspian, look at me," she replied, as he respectfully put down the paper and looked at Rebecca. "I know what you're doing," she said to him. He sighed. "Rebecca, listen," he began before she interrupted. "There is nothing in that paper or out in that world that matters to who you are now. Do you understand me? What happened, happened. It's over. You've been given a rare gift that almost no one ever gets, a fresh start. Why go searching for things that may hurt the new life you've worked so hard for? Why would you think it would hurt me?" he asked as he carefully folded the newspaper his wife own over his crossed legs. Finding out where I came from and who I was before will just add to our lives now. Don't you want to know? Don't you wonder who you're really married to? I know who you are now. That is the man I married. That's what matters. And how do you know it won't hurt us finding that information? You really want to open the can of worms she countered? I think I have the right to find out. Rebecca, there was someone in this mine where I was, Caspian. I don't know where exactly I came from or who I was. What if I had family out there, children, he asked. She pursed her lips at the thought of it. A family that didn't include her. He quickly noticed her bristle at the idea. Look, no matter what I find out, it won't change how I feel about it. We're in this together, I promise you that. I've given myself to you and to our cause. I wouldn't have married you. I truly didn't want to. You understand, don't you? What would you do in my situation? I would thank the Lord above that I had someone who cared enough for me to keep me away from any danger, she replied. We don't know what you'll find, Caspian, and if you will be safe knowing more. For all we know, you stepped into the devil's eye because just... She paused. Because what? Darling, what happened to you doesn't just happen to any regular person, she said. What do you mean? He wondered a bit perturbed at her insinuation. To Rebecca, the notion of whomever Casson was in the past was simply an innocent person who had fallen into the trappings of something nefarious, and evil was not built in reality. She understood the world of the supernatural much differently than anyone in Gosport. Putting it simply for Caspian to understand caused an almost certain rift in truth. He knew where she was going. I would have to upset you, she said softly. You can be honest with me. She braced herself. Something in your past must have brought you on that darkness, Caspian. There is a reason why you were chosen. I don't know that reason. Only that monster that took your body over knows why it was summoned on earth and why you were chosen to be its host. I think for all of our sakes, you leave it to be, you leave it be. Let the past be the past, as we've both chosen to move on with our lives together. So real quick, what Rebecca is implying is that Caspian could have A, been a part of an occult, B, he could have been chosen he could have been chosen as a member of an occult. I think that's what she's implying. So there's that. Is his name really Caspian? No. That's, or at least for now, no, I would say. I can't accept that, Caspian replied. I think I deserve to know who I was before all of this, even if that means knowing something horrible about myself. That was then, this is now. I am different. What happened to me made me different. I'm free of that monster, and I'm free of whatever horrible things I may or may not have done. But I should be able to know these things. It would be a mistake, Rebecca said again, fighting off Caspian's desire for truth. What are you afraid of? What are you afraid will happen? That for whatever reason I discovered who I was will bring on the monster again? It won't happen, Rebecca. I can fight him off this time. Yeah, Father Ryan, he can help us. Maybe I can enlist him to help us. Caspian, it will be a mistake. Rebecca shot back again, this time taking a stand and looking down on Caspian, who was still seated on the cream-colored sofa. Caspian's further his brow. He took a breath, flipped the newspaper over and onto the cushion. Rebecca was sitting on and stood up to her, their eyes meeting her, gazing up at his tall frame, his down on her tiny body. This is something I have to do. I need you to support me. Someone in this town knows who I was. Someone, anyone. They know. I might have a family somewhere, he repeated. Like a wife, Rebecca replied without skipping a beat. And there it was, her true fear. Not that he was somehow revert to his demonic state, should he discover who he was or what he was before they met, but that there was someone else, someone he once loved. It was a situation that felt repetitive, something Rebecca fought off when the evil side of Caspian was obsessed with the younger, more beautiful Aurora. No, he said softly, realizing her hurt. There won't be a wife. And how do you know? Because if there were, Caspian, if there were a wife out there, our whole marriage would be invalid. We'd be done, she added. We'd be done, she added. I would not that. I would for sure know that I would had another wife. That's not what I meant by family, he said. Rebecca felt confused. Then he asked, siblings, cousins, he paused, repeated, children. Rebecca took a breath. It didn't connect to her. How would he wonder if he had children out in the world, no wife? Was he just softening the blow? I need you to do me one thing before you do any kind of searching, she requested, to his chin and gulped. Okay? You pursue this. If you truly need to know the truth, are unsatisfied just beginning anew with me, I need you to promise me that if there is someone else, a wife, will leave her and marry me to validate our love. Caspian cocked his head and thought, but it didn't take him even a second to reply, of course. She questioned, I love you now. This is who I have chosen now. The search I need to make is only to meet the desires of my psyche. Who I was, where did I come from? Do I have a family, or was I here alone? That's all I want to know. But if is someone out there not knowing, I am alive as a different person. So she will lose to you, I promise you that. Like singing in blood, signing in blood, Caspian gave himself again to Rebecca. I promise she would never, ever let him renege on. She smiled, grateful, and pulled him in for a kiss and hug under the sparkling chandeliers of the gold Rebecca Lockwood Lord Castledor always got what she wanted. An awkward Lord family moment. In a separate part of the mansion, in a half-circle shaped room, sitting room, in Jacob and Celeste's apartment, a warm glow seeped in from the windows and the beautiful paramount views of green forest all around the house. Jacob, Celeste, Fabian, and Gabriel were together, playing like a gleeful, picturesque family, As the foursome played and chatted together like a happy family, Evie walked in and her mother Aurora, both in a flurry of fabrics from their dresses as they had been frantically looking for little Gabriel upstairs. Evie quickly rushed over to her boy and scooped him up off the floor where he was playing with blocks, Celeste and Fabian. The sudden dash of Evie's body started 4-year-old Fabian was who hopped onto his father's lap. Evie stepped away, holding Gabriel in her arms, kissing his pink cheeks. Now, calm yourself. You'll kiss his cheeks raw, Jacob said coldly. Evie, how are you feeling? Celeste asked as she got up from the floor, holding the blocks in her hands. Don't talk to her, Aurora snarled. This is our house, Aurora. If you'd like to order people around, she go back to Constable Rain's flat where you will have more authority, Jacob replied. Aurora rolled her eyes. Evie, how are you? Celeste asked again, hoping to repair her once solid friendship. I need rest, but I'm better, Evie said. You should be resting now. We should call Dr. Ward, Celeste offered. No more doctors, especially none you don't trust, Aurora said. Jacob let out a laugh. Dr. Ward is a doctor you don't trust? How does that even make sense to you? He's the one that saved Earl Nicholas' career over there at Hope Hospital. Nicholas is to blame for what happened to Evangeline, not Dr. Ward. Aurora's eyes narrowed at Jacob for bringing up Nick, who had been the doctor to prescribe the medication that Jacqueline used on Evie to render her to sleep virtually dead. The mother of the Jordan siblings slowly walked over to Jacob and sneered at him with contempt. She knew he was trying to bring out worse than her, but she kept her composure. Maybe what I meant was no more doctors trusted by you. We all know how much money you give Washport Hope and how easy it is for someone to fall into your clutches and get carted off to a mental hospital. You've done it 3 times now, Aurora reminded him. Jacob cleared his throat. All within reason, he said with a sly grin as Aurora scoffed. Enough, that's enough, Celeste chimed in. Evie, whatever you need, anything, please let us know, and we can help you, I promise you. Help me, Evie replied. Your husband is the person that got me taken away from my son. Both have made it so that I am no longer his legal guardian. For his own safety, you said, I am his mother. I would never put him in danger. Celeste sighed. Evie, when everything happened, you were taken away. We had to make sure Gabriel was safe with the family. Evie laughed, but the two of you were the reason for him being unsafe in the first place. Doesn't matter now, Jacob replied. Gabriel is under our care and control, under the law, plain and simple. Aurora scoffed again. Control, you say? Yes, along with all the assets he is set to inherit one day. An added bonus for taking care of kin, I'd say, Jacob shrugged smugly. You piece of you began before Aurora stopped her. Both know this is wrong. Celeste looked at Jacob, wasn't sure how to respond anymore. She knew, too, that they had purposefully done this to Evie, to get more of the family fortune under their control. Evie was locked away and then presumed dead. Her share of the fortune she inherited through her marriage to Sebastian now went to Gabriel. The little boy was one of the wealthiest children on the East Coast, and being his guardians made Jacob and Celeste even that more powerful within their company. The plot was set and forged in monetary matters, and the greed was oozing out of Jacob's eyes. For her part, Celeste only wanted to guarantee her safety and keep her own son out of Jacob's murderous hands. Evie stepped closer to Celeste, who was clutching onto Fabian's hands for dear life. She felt horrible for her part of the struggles, but nevertheless knew she had to do it. Feeling the unease in the room, Fabian squirmed out of his mother's hands and ran off into the hallway. Little Gabriel began to cry and reached for Celeste. It killed Evie, but she could not bear to hear baby cry, the baby she loved so much. Baby was feeling insecure and needed to be held by the woman who had been taking care of him for months. Evie teared up, but did what the baby wanted to help ease the distress. She handed him to Celeste despite Aurora's objections. You've asked what I need from you in the matter of helping me. I need you to go to the court and get your guardian son back to me. That is what I need. That is what helped me. If you were ever my friend, Celestial, do this, Evie said with a solid voice, quivering. No quivering, no shaking. Evie eyed Celeste began before Evie interrupted. Don't say anything. Just do it. Do the right thing, Evie added before grabbing her baby's little hand and kissing it and looking over at her mother and asking her to leave with her, allowing Evie to say the hallway before Jacob Celeste's ears. Aurora pulled Evie aside. Why would you? Why did you hand over the child to her? For starters, they're right. Legally, I'd be kidnapping him. It's as insane as it sounds. Celeste has to see that I'm not wrong on this. She has to make the decision and reverse what they've done by the terms of the law. Bring back to him. If I just to my baby now, it make matters so much worse. Jacob's as dense as stone, so it has to be Celeste. Surely you don't trust her or believe she'll grow a conscience after everything that has happened. Do you? Aurora asked. Evie took a deep sigh and shrugged. Our friendship ever meant anything to her, I can only hope. God only knows what they do to me if they knew the full truth of how I got in the grave. I'd never see outside of Churchill again. Full truth? What do you mean? Her mother wondered. He wasn't sure how to explain. How could she tell her mother, the witch obsessed with Sebastian, shape-shifted into the nurse that drugged her to sleep and put her a spell on her to make her look dead? No one could know the full truth, not even people she trusted. For now, Evie felt no threat from Jacqueline, who was, Evie hoped, on the run or on the total search for Sebastian. Evie made sure he was hidden away and no one could find. Not even Jacqueline, with all her powers, would be able to. No one could know the truth. Evie knew the danger of the truth to the world of witch Jacqueline. How would anyone believe her? Her focus would be on rehabilitating herself in the eyes of the court to get her son back legally. It doesn't matter now. I'm going to just focus on my son, reuniting him once and for all, Evie said. Aurora sighed. This is about what Dr. Work heard say about who saved that. Evie's breath shallow. She was unaware of partially Evie her body physically recoiling at the topic of the night she was free from a grave. We'll talk to someone, Aurora replied, noting to that Evie's discomfort. We'll make sure we have our own way out of this, darling. No grandchild of mine is going to refuse those two hydras once we get Gabriel back. Destroy them once and for all. Everything they've done, every last one of them. Evie smiled. She grabbed her mother's hand and agreed. And the two Jordan's women rushed off to find their warrior. That evening, as the sea air fell over the lower end of Welshport, like a blanket of salty clouds. The busiest pub in town, the Siren's Call, catered to a rowdy group of fishermen and sailors. They were on shore leave from long trips out to sea. Over in the corner, both Jacqueline Gray, over in the corner booth, Jacqueline Gray awaited her date for the night, and she had recently met, right there in the very same pub, very same booth. She sipped on a glass of white wine as a small white candle in its red glass container flickered in her dark eyes. She felt nervous awaiting her date, Jonathan Davinia. The night they made love, when she touched his skin and her body became one with his, she could see into his mind. She saw his memories, his likes and dislikes, his hopes, his dreams, and his guilty conscience. Jacqueline saw what he did to the true man she loved, Sebastian, in the vision. She saw Jonathan take him and lock him away in some sort of vault or tomb where he could not be found. Her anger burned deep in her bones for what he had done. Now the matter was even more a priority, stopping Evie from outing her for what she did. Jacqueline feared that now that Evie was free from coffin and free from being buried alive, and thanks to Jacqueline herself, she would now be in Eve's target list and be outed for what she had done. A witch in the crosshairs was a dangerous place to be. Only one person could save her from anything Evie might do to her. It was if this were to happen, and that person had just walked into the Siren's Call pub, saw Jacqueline flash a bright white smile his way. Jonathan ordered a beer on tap at the bar and walked over to the booth. He smiled, and the gorgeous witch had kissed her hand. At the gorgeous witch. I'm so happy to have heard from you. When I received your note to meet you tonight, I couldn't wait for the time to come. I've been thinking about you since that night we were together. He told her. She smiled convincingly, um, but inside wanted to rip his shirt out for what he did to Sebastian. Couldn't stop thinking about you too, she replied, partially true. You left the house so abruptly that I'd done I thought I'd done something wrong, he recalled. Jacqueline yelped when she remembered she fled Terramore when her victim Evie arrived. No, no, not at all, she lied. I felt that maybe I should have been found for what clearly was a very dramatic family-only type of event. He smiled. I see. Then perhaps we could. Jonathan began before the barmaid dropped his beer on the table. Perhaps we could. So trying to be discreet while the maid cleaned the table. As the maid left, Jacqueline finished his thought. Make love again? She grinned. He smiled back. I think we can make something happen soon, yes. I think I'd love that, she added. What was your favorite part? He asked as her stomach tightened in disgust. We should take care. Oh, sorry, we should talk about that some other time, I asked. You here to know you better, Jacqueline replied. Of course, please forgive me. It's just that I don't think I've ever found anyone more attractive in my whole life, and I feel like perhaps you like me too, Jonathan replied, his voice schoolboy shy. I do like you. Okay, I do like you, she replied in a half truth. That's good, he said, smiling. What did you want to talk about? What about me did you want to know? Her mouth wanted to scream out, where did you put Sebastian? But it wouldn't matter if she did. Evie and Sebastian chose an entirely different place to hide him away forever. Jacqueline would never know unless Evie told her, and Evie would never do that. Jacqueline's plan had to be foolproof. She desperately needed security and safety from what might occur if she were discovered. She needed Jonathan's cover. She slowly reached over across the table, took Jonathan's hand, and made circles with her fingers slightly on the palm of his hand. He could feel the tickling of her fingertips sent tingles all through his body. He could feel a rush of coldness rise from his feet into his legs and through his stomach and into his lungs and up to his head. Jacqueline stopped tickling his palm, his hand, as the cold sensation went up her own body, linking the two of them, and finally, when their eyes locked on each other, she yanked his hand and held it tightly. Jonathan was fully in a trance, spellbound, and locked into Jacqueline's control. She began to whisper to him over and over again, and her words came from her mouth like breath on an ice-cold morning. The buffs of hair followed an invisible path into Jonathan's locked mind where he could hear her say, "This is what you want. I am who you want. This is what you want. I am who you want. This is what you want. I am who you want. This is what you want. I am who you want." Jonathan repeated softly out loud, their four eyes still locked in each other's gaze. This is what I want. She is who I want. This is what I want. Together, Jacqueline said in a low voice, we will be together, two of us, you and I. Together we'll be together, you and I, Jonathan. Married, she said. Married, he agreed. Speak after I speak, so that everyone in your family will know that I am the woman you will marry, protect and save from all who wish to harm me. You understand, Jacqueline asked, as she tightened her hold on Jonathan's hand. You are who I want to marry, and I will protect you from all who wish to harm you. I understand. Everything is all right here, barmaid asked, searching for empty glasses to take back. Coming up on the strange interaction between Jacqueline and Jonathan gave her a pause. This outside voice from the maid released Jonathan from Jacqueline's hypnotic spell. Everything is fine. In fact, I'd like to buy some champagne, he said, standing up. Champagne for the whole bar? Jonathan searched for the whole bar, maid asked. Jacqueline gulped. Yes, Jonathan told her. Friends, listen. I've just become engaged to this beautiful woman sitting here with me. No dollar is too much. Champagne, champagne for everyone. Jacqueline's eyes widened. It had worked. Jonathan had been successfully hypnotized into marrying her, and she would get his protection under his newfound lord last name. No one could hurt her. He wouldn't dare. The patrons of the bar all called out with glee, and patted Jonathan on the back for nabbing such a pretty wench, as sailors would say. The ladies in the room quickly rushed over, and to see her ring, and magically one appeared, thanks to Jacqueline's quick thinking and powerful mind. It's so big, one lady said. What a diamond, another replied. Jacqueline was halfway there. If her spell kept, she'd be up in Terramore House at any time as one of the family, protected from harm. And what happened, she could then begin her true search for the man she truly loved, Sebastian. After When Sebastian was finally found, she'd ended with Jonathan. She looked at him happily, shaking hands with everyone in the bar as champagne flutes were filled and overflown on the ground. Began a ticking clock in her head. Soon be dead. She'd marry him, keep herself safe, find Sebastian, then kill Jonathan for taking him away from her in the first place, and then all was said and done, she'd handle leaving. She stood up, and Jonathan pulled her into a happy hug and whispered to herself as the ring on her finger sparkled under the lights. One step at a time, one step at a time. In a small house off a main street in the village, Nicholas Jordan sipped from a small cup of tea, letting his thoughts take over his mind, thoughts of everything that had happened to him and his family over the last few months, his guilt over how his sister's supposed death transpired, and how he felt like the guilt and responsibility for how he even got to the point of an accidental overdose medication he prescribed. Most of, but most of all, there was something on his mind was even worse. It had been bothering him day and night, and had been consistently picking his brain. Nick had been sitting on a secret that he knew would blow up so many people's lives, including his own, if it revealed. The woman Nick loved, Ashia Hoffman, was somehow mixed up in another one of his family tragedies, death of the child Nick's mother Aurora gave birth to a few months back. He had overheard Ashia and Gregory Rains discussing something in unclear terms regarding Aurora's child, the child Ashia delivered and declared dead on the night of its birth. But the conversation Nick overheard between Ashia and Gregory made the events of that night murkier. Nick sat there on the sofa going over what he knew. He knew Aurora gave birth to a girl that passed away at birth. But what he overheard was Aurora gave birth to a boy that she and Gregory took from Aurora. Where they took the child was unclear, and lied to his mother and everyone about surviving. The matter of it all was that Ashia was once again responsible for someone in Nick's life suffering. Just as Nick was running out of tea, Ashia walked in from her late shift at the hospital. "Hi," she said, entering the home, giant smile on her face. "You're still up?" "I am, yeah, just having some tea. I guess I should have had a little less. Not feeling ready to sleep yet, and I have to get to the hospital pretty quick early," Nick replied. Ashia leaned over the arm of the gray sofa and kissed Nick on the lips, but the kiss felt cold. "Are you all right?" she asked, sensing his hard body language. Nick stood up. "I'm just feeling a little off lately. Something's been in my mind for a while now, and it's been eating at me, away at me," he said. "Nick, this is about Evie. We've talked about it. It wasn't your fault. The nurse, she gave Evie too much. What you first prescribed. You had no idea any of that happened. Evie doesn't blame you," Ashia replied. Nick could see Ashia had no idea there was so much more on his mind than that. Her secret, her lies, they were killing him. He smirked unconvincingly back. "Yeah," he said, shivered her brow. "There's more?" she asked. "More?" "Nick, I can tell there's something else that's bothering you besides Evie. What is it? Did something happen at the hospital?" she asked. Nick stood there and looked at the beautiful Shia. She was so sincere in her love and her care for him, but on the other side of it she had a way of always finding herself in situations where she'd have to do something wrong and bury herself in more secrets and lies. She promised him after the first time he discovered her lies that it would be, le- be the last time. This again was another lie. There they were, in the face of a hurricane of secrets. He took a beat to answer her and then said, "Sort of, yes. What happened at work?" He described he decided to test her. "It's my mother, actually. She's been feeling rather low in the last few months after what happened with Evie, of course, losing her son." Uh, Nick said, as she gulped, "You mean daughter?" She replied, trying to keep the lie going that Aurora gave birth to a girl, when in fact she gave to a boy she and Gregory secretly adopted to marry and Philip. Nick lifted the brow. "Right, yes, daughter. I'm struggling to find ways to help her." "What would you do?" "All I can say is that there is just be there for her and let her know that you'll do anything to help her through this really difficult time. She knows you'll be there for a really hard transition. That's all you can really do," as she explained. "But what if there's no more? What if there's more to it? What if there's more to what happened that night? She gave birth. You were there. You delivered. Did you notice anything that would trigger her depression? You've seen her. You've been around her. Her depression must be steaming from more than just what happened with Evie. I think it's about that night she gave birth. What do you think?" he said, pushing her into bad memories of what she did. As she had started to feel uneasy, she didn't want to talk about that night. She knew that if she had to add more to the story, it would be more to cover up and on. Nick's question made her feel as if there were more to it than just his son wanting to know more details on his half-sibling's tragic demise. "No, I can't say that I can add anything to that horrible night. I mean, your mother wasn't conscious when the baby was born, so I didn't notice anything different for her before she went into labor. But it's natural for a mother to feel some depression in such a traumatic event. Maybe she can seek some help at Churchill Green," she has said, reflecting to note that Gregory had drugged Aurora to sleep with medication she had given him. "See, that's the thing, Ashia. Isn't it odd that a woman giving birth would just fall asleep or not be awake during birth without being given something? I know that I'm a new doctor. I'm still learning. I just have never seen or heard that before. You've been in the medical field for a long time, first as a nurse. Doesn't that seem strange to you? And then how fast Rames decided in cremation. I mean, my mother says she didn't even get to see the little girl." "That's odd too," Nick asked again, prodding, as she began to feel nervous and unsure of where his questions were leading, but her instincts clearly told her he knew something or suspected something, that she was in his crosshairs for some reason. I don't think I should talk about my patient to you. Her privacy in that moment of her life should be something that she talks about with you as her son, not me as her doctor," she replied deflecting. "Right, but I'm a doctor too, and you're also my girlfriend, who was there the night my half-sibling was born. I feel like maybe you knew more than you're saying." Why shouldn't we all sit down and talk together so you can fill in some blanks? Nick asked. She had gulped. That's not appropriate, she answered. It's not? Nick asked as Aurora shook her head no. I think it's very much is appropriate, she added. There was just you and Gregory there. I think giving us more information about that night would help us all. Evie, too, would really appreciate it. I would have to speak with your mother first as her doctor, as she is said attempting to delay anything so that she could tell Gregory. We could do it tomorrow. We all have to go over to Gregory's, Nick said. No, she assented to Nick's surprise. I'm sorry. Look, Nicholas, we both know there are rules about discussing things shit about our patients outside of the hospital. I regret not getting Aurora to the hospital that night. But we didn't have time. The baby came very quickly. That being said, I can't go along with asking Aurora anything in front of you or Evie or Gregory. It has to be on her terms. It's the appropriate thing to do. Nick approached his lips. He could tell she was hiding something. Her face sold the story, but as a cheap price, he already knew the truth, at least a very vague version of the truth, and he would do anything in his power to make sure she and Gregory were forced to tell everyone what they did with the baby and why. You're probably right, Nick said unconvincingly. We'll see what my mother decides to do when she's ready. She smiled and walked over to Nick, who was now standing across from her. She kissed him on the cheek and excused herself to get ready for bed. As she entered into the bedroom, a wave of panic washed over her face. Nick was pushing for information he knew she could tell him and wanted to know more. She had to stop him from asking Aurora anything and opening the door back into that night, a night she regretted and wanted to forget. She had to stop him from doing anything drastic and dangerous for her own good. She had to stop him before it was too late. She was on the brink of losing. She could taste that she had to convince Gregory to come clean. They both had to. It was the only choice. She thought of saying the truth set you free, and this rang true. She was trapped, and only telling the truth could save her now. So, there's a lot going on. For those who don't know, or have never checked this out and should, really, really interesting stuff how Nick is pressing her, because Nick had found out by the end of book 5 the truth about things, and so now he's pressing this situation. You have Jacqueline putting Jonathan under a spell, but she means to kill him. Whenever she finds Sebastian. Little does she know, Evie knows, only Evie knows Sebastian is. And Sebastian knows about what Jacqueline did. So, there's a lot of interesting aspects going on. And then you have Evie who wants to get custody of her kid back. So, we'll see what happens. Jacqueline is going to be married to Jonathan. Good luck, girl. I mean, you got powers, but we'll see what happens. We'll see. Link to book 6, chapter 2 will be in the description box. Go check it out if you haven't.